Well, anyway, thank you very much again for being here. This movie has a lot of stories involved with it. Like I said, I've already told a few of them at the beginning, and there are a ton more of, and I'm not going to get into it because we're going to have this Q&A, but I'm going to introduce folks here, right here. This is George Stover. Big applause. Now, George has been in every Don Dohler movie, and the rumor has it he's been in every movie ever made in Baltimore, going back 150 years. No, just kidding.
Silent cinema.
Silent cinema. But you've worked with John Waters, right?
Yeah.
Oh, use the microphone so we can hear you.
Oh, okay. If you saw Female Trouble, I was played the prison chaplain who escorted Divine to the electric chair at the end of the movie.
All right. Next to George, we have Britt.
I haven't finished my John Wooders resume. If you saw Desperate Living, I played Bosley Gravel in the beginning, who was saddled and killed by a family maid. And that movie just came out on 4K a couple of weeks ago.
Okay. Next is Britt McDonough, and Britt he played Ted in the Alien Factor, and also and he was a cinematographer and also SPX. What's SPX? Okay, use microphone.
Oh, yeah. I worked on the effects.
Okay.
I was just telling you that, the spaceship that you see, the back of it is actually a electric toothbrush. Yeah, and the front panels are from an Apollo spacecraft thing. We put it together, and the scene uses a depth perception so that the spaceship is very close to the camera, mounted on a little table that was supported by a tripod, and so the guys are way back.
Oh, we couldn't even see them.
Yeah, and when you do it, the cinematography angle, you stop down as much as you can, like about 8.5, almost at f11, to pull everything into focus. We're also using a wide-angle lens, and that helps to pull everything into focus and to give you the right perspective. But it worked really well. I mean, I'm looking at it now, it looks great.
And plus it didn't hurt that we had just had a snowfall that night and bright sunlight, so you had so much light out there.
Easy to shoot, but when you see their faces and they're a little bit red outside, it was cold.
Oh!
It was really cold.
Yeah, okay. Now moving along, let's see. Don's son, Greg. Greg, no, I'm not going to ask any questions because we're going to do this panel. I'm not going to be on the panel. I'm not involved, okay? I already said my piece. Next, we're now moving on to Nightbeast. This is the star of Nightbeast, Jamie Zimmerel. Taking care of the store for the sheriff, Pete. Richard Gyrus. This guy had nothing to do with either movie. He made his own movie on Don Dohler called Blood, Boobs, and Beast. And this is John Goodhart. And last but not least, we have Robert Long. Now, Robert, he was a fan of Don's for a long time. He worked with Don on Blood Massacre, art, and Crawler, special effects with Dead Hunt prop design. And he also worked with John. Well, we won't talk about what he did for you, or for you, or against you, or whatever. No. And anyway, another project. So, and Robert Long here, and he also did some art, some of the art you saw in promoting this event on Facebook. So thank you, Robert. And since I would tell incessant stories, no, not incest. I'm going to turn this whole thing over to a guy who knows how to do a panel and a Q&A. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to introduce our moderator, the guy probably known to you a lot. For Heavy Metal Parking Lot, Jeff Krulik.
Thank you, Count Gore. Thank you. We want to give him a break, so here I am to kind of move this thing along. And of course, he is part of our heavy metal parking lot. He opens the DVD. And with John Hyde is here, who I made heavy metal parking lot with, from Baltimore, Maryland, right there.
Oh, John!
Appreciate it. I'd like to know, who was, anybody here at the premiere of the Alien Factor in Baltimore? Yeah, you were there. Anybody else? Raise your hand. The guy in the back. You were, of course. Doug Chapman in the back was there. And who traveled here? I know that Don Dohler's fans are far and wide. Raise your hand if you actually traveled to be here tonight. Right here. This is great. That's great. Thank you so much. Count Gore said there's a lot of stories. So let's hear some. I think Richard, I'm sorry, Brett, you were the cinematographer, right? And how long was that? Roughly how long were you the cinematographer?
Well, yeah,
And use the microphone right there.
Oh, yeah. Well, when we shot it, we did the rough cut. Tony Malinowski and I did the rough cut on a KLM editor, flap edit that Don got a hold of and made a deal with him. And it was only 60 minutes long. So it was like, well, you know, this is long enough for a feature. So the bar scene was added later, and the scene where the guy's at the river and, you know, he's gonna make up with the girl and the motorcycle, that was shot later. That was shot by John Constantino later.
Shot with the kids,
Yeah.
me, and bouncing ball, right? That was like longer than it probably needed to be.
Shot in slow motion.
Exactly.
Yeah. We shot in slow motion. Yeah, we were trying to pad it. But you know, it was a lot of fun to shoot, and it brings back a lot of memories. Towards the end there, it was so cold that my camera, nothing happened. My camera just died. We were out in the middle of the woods, and the thing shooting the scene, and it stopped. And the director thought I stopped it on purpose. I said, no, I didn't stop it. It's just the camera stopped. The camera had frozen up from the cold. It was very cold. Yeah. So they had to do some pickups at the end. And I was out of it as far as shooting at that point. I went back to DC or Virginia. But it was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was a gas to do, you know.
Now, who were investors in this? Who put money up?
Well, all of them.
Okay.
Yeah. Us two, and your dad, your aunt, right?
Yes.
And Dave put money in, Tony put money in. We each put in $500. And so with the original budget was $3,500. And again, you know, it was fortunate because I happen to have a camera. When I got out of film school in Philly, I worked in industrial films for a year. And at that year, during that year, I saved to get a Bolex camera. And I remember right before I left the you know, filmmakers, it was called, it was the Art Museum, you know, Ron. I saved $1,000 to buy the Bolex, and I bought it like a day or so before I left Philly. And when I came back because Don had called me. I was at work at the studio, and Don said, "Hey, we're doing this movie. Do you want to get involved in it?" I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds." I went. It's kind of slow here, so I went into. I had a wonderful boss, Len Levin, was my boss there, and he ran the show there. And I said, "Lenny, the guys want to do a film. Can you lay me off?" And they're like, yeah. You know, I said, thanks, you know. And then my buddy Rick, who I went to film school with, helped me move back to this area. And Rick went all the way. Rick Kidney became an executive producer. And he executive produced, let's see if I remember, a lot of movies. I can't remember right now. One of them was the remake of the thing with Arnold where he's on Mars. The remake of that. He produced that. Yeah, that one. He produced the remake. He also executive produced let's see, Salt, the one with Angelina Jolie. And years after, you know, went back to Washington, that sort of thing, Rick went back to our school and gave a lecture to the film students at the time. And the first thing he said at the lecture was, okay, the first thing I can teach you in this business is you really have to learn to get along with people. That was his first message, and then he told stories about Angelina owning three trailers in New York and how expensive it was. The executive producers, they're logistics guys, and they worry about how we're going to pay for the stuff, you know. And I haven't been in touch with him for years, but he was a good buddy in film school. We helped each other on our films.
And who else? When was it? Can somebody say like when you all of a sudden realized that this was actually a thing, that it was becoming a cult, if you will, or people really were taking notice? Like personally, was there any moment when it really struck you that with Don's work, with Alien Factor in particular, Richard? Well, hold the mic. I just put you on the spot right now. But if anybody else has anything that you
Yeah,
might
I'm
want to say
trying
about
to
that.
think when that, I don't know, does anybody else remember exactly? Because it kind of started out so slow back then, you know, 'cause you don't have
I think it
the-
took 2 years to sell it, and you know, we showed it one weekend in Baltimore. People walked out. So that was better. Well,
But,
do you remember that?
I'm going to get to that in a minute. But Star Wars was partly responsible for the success of the Alien Factor. At that time, when we finished making it, science fiction was so big and in demand because of the success of Star Wars, that this outfit called Gold Key Entertainment bought the rights to release the Alien Factor on television for 15 years. So that syndication deal brought in a lot of viewers, and I guess brought in enough money for Don to make his next movie, Fiend. And I thank Star Wars for making the Alien Factor desirable, because science fiction was big, and TV syndicators were clamoring for product to release to television stations. So
But I know when they finished the film, they thought, well, the only way to success was theatrical, and they paid for a 35 millimeter blow up, which turned out wasn't needed. They didn't even think that it was going to be a TV thing.
So the 35 millimeter is what screened in the theater. In
Right,
Baltimore.
but that was like one or two things. It was not the success of Alien Factor.
Is there still a 35 millimeter print?
George has it.
Is that right?
Well, what happened was there was some problem with the copyright, so it was formally copyrighted years later, after it should have been copyrighted, I think, or whatever. There's something, and I remember Charlie Ellis coming over and taking a 35 millimeter print I had, and he took it to the copyright office for deposit. I still have that 35 millimeter negative if anybody wants to buy it or store it or whatever. Let me tell you something quick that happened the night of the premiere. When this was shown to the public in Baltimore for the first time, Don rented 2 movie theaters to show it at a midnight screening on Friday and Saturday night of the same weekend. So the one weekend, it was screened 4 times. And I went to the theater closest to me, and there was other cast members there and sitting next to me. And after the movie, some guy in front of me, a stranger, stood up and said to one of his friends, "I missed Saturday Night Live for this." So we didn't start out having an appreciative audience. But I will say, all these decades later, Saturday Night Live is still on. We're still having Alien Factor screenings. But thank goodness this is enough for an appreciative audience the first time I saw it on the big screen.
Greg, what was it like being, involved in the family? I believe all your neighbors. You shot a lot in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And your schoolmates this must have been a real curiosity.
Well, first off, it's a little tough for me to watch the scenes in the sheriff's office because that was my sister and I's playroom. So I remember my dad said, "Kids, we're making a movie and we need your playroom." That was tough. But it was. I've said before, one of my earliest memories of being with my dad was mixing fake blood in the stationery tub in our basement for something he was working on. But I loved it. I mean, I think what was amazing is that I was a kid, and I was around, Richard, and everybody treated me like one of the crew. Like they didn't think, oh, here's this dumb kid just hanging out. So it was kind of an amazing experience. And there was people traveling in from New York, New Jersey, and all over, and so it was suddenly there were all these really interesting, creative people that I got to be around, and it was just this amazing event. Yeah, very, very thankful for growing up in that environment.
Now, Richard, you knew it, Don, you were, how did you get cast?
Well, I had been doing Super 8 films with friends of mine, with Jamie, and through Cinemagic, and we had entered some of our Super 8 films in the Cinemagic contest, and I guess Don saw all of us and knew we were local. So it made sense to cast local people and get people behind the scenes and that sort of thing as well. So somehow, maybe because of my age, I made a good deputy. Tom Griffith, of course, had silver hair. I mean, he really looked like, a sheriff. So we really worked well together. And one thing I should mention too, is kind of eerie. He passed away a few years ago, and I'm still getting emails from him, which I guess it tells you that AI isn't as smart as what he thinks it is, because I know that's not Tom. But he says, hey, Rich, I got some pictures I want you to see. It's like, no, I'm not gonna open that one up. So, but anyway, I got cast through that, and I guess he thought I made a good deputy. So.
And Cinemagic was the magazine that Don put out.
Right.
The publisher, and dealing with special effects, primarily.
That's how he was able to network all of us, because we all wrote for it. I used to print pictures for it. I'm sorry, I used to print photos for it when I was still in college.
For Cinemagic.
Yeah, for Cinemagic, and I write articles. And we're talking about Star Wars. When I mentioned the interesting thing about that, Benjamin Burt, who works for Industrial Light and Magic, he's one of the key guys there. He made a film called Rod Flash is Conquered by Infinity, which is, remember? And they ran it at Balticon. And so he got a hold of us, and he said, you guys were working on this movie Star Wars, and it's pretty amazing. And he sent us, I still have the stuff, some of the stuff he sent, these 20th Century Fox things where they have the pictures and everything. And so we were actually in touch with him when they were making Star Wars, and we knew it was coming, and he was raving about the thing, so there's actually a connection there with ILM.
Now, we're going to talk about Nightbeast shortly, but why don't we talk a little bit about creating or developing the legacy of Don and through the work of, I guess, Robert on the end there, and John Kinhart, who made the documentary Blood, Boobs, Beast in 2007. So that was a feature-length documentary on Don and his work, and you can see it on Tubi, which is free. So it's online, and you can pull it up and watch that. And you can also see Mr. Stover, George Stover's documentary on Tubi, No Stopping the Stover, and another feature-length documentary. So anyway, and so, but John, why don't you talk about that, and Robert too, what you've been doing, and how this really, I think, helped create and develop and perpetuate the legacy of Don.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of a little bit stumbled into Don Dohler. Like I was in 2005 or 6, I found Alien Factor in like Borders in Towson, and it said Aliens Invade Baltimore, and I was like, oh, what's this? And then, you know, I was pretty, you know, intrigued by it. And then shortly after that was Michael Yokel's article in the Baltimore City paper, which you know, laid out like Don's interesting background of like, you know, all the way back to his fanzines that he made as a teenager with, you know, the mimeograph fanzine Wild, and that influence on underground comics, and how the underground comics influenced him to do Cinemagic magazine. And then Cinemagic magazine, as you guys were saying, is really the foundation that Alien Factor was built on. All the connections that Dohler used to, like, for the various monsters and aliens were connections he made through Cinemagic magazine. And so, so yeah, I just think that the Dohler legacy, the Dohler body of work is just so awesome, and he was such a prolific filmmaker, and so it's been really exciting to be a part of that, and I just love it when things happen, like when Nightbeast showed up in Mandy. I was just like blown away. John Cross is in the audience of the After Movie Diner. Like, he posted that, and I was like just so shocked that, you know, that was happening, that like this incredible film Mandy was like featuring a Don Dohler movie, and you know, we're about to see Nightbeast on the big screen, which is like so exciting. And Rob here has, as Dick mentioned earlier, has been working to get some of Don's later movies. The movie Crawler was Don's second to last film shot, and it had some effects, some CGI effects that were taking a long time to do. And for like, I don't know, like a decade or so, you guys kept kind of nudging it along, and then finally, it was kind of like Let It Be. It was like the penultimate you know, recorded thing, but then the final piece to come out. And Rob did a lot of work to help that out.
Can you talk about that, Rob?
Yeah, talk about the work you did on that.
Okay, well, I mean, I'd known of Don since 1979 through Cinemagic, and early 2000s, he was back in business. So I sent him some fan art, and he calls me up one day, and I'm just totally floored. It's like, I'm talking to Don Dohler. So we got a friendship going, and I did a lot of design for him. As it was said, he was working on Blood Massacre again, so I did art for that. And the last couple of things, I worked on his later movies, the first being Crawler, which was not a rubber suit guy. We tried the rubber suit and it didn't work, so we had to go with CGI. And we're not ILM, so it took us a very long time because real life gets in the way. But a few years back, we were able to finish it because we want to see Don's work finished and out there for the masses. And the last thing, I'm probably the pest because I've been working on the Dead Hunt Blu-ray. Dead Hunt is Don's last movie that he worked on since 2012. And I know I bugged the hell out of Greg, and I got some wonderful stuff from John Kinhart from his documentary Blood, Boobs, and Bees. So we were able to just get all the behind the scenes of Dead Hunt for that, and it finally came out in June. So just a wonderful experience working with Don.
And I believe there's also like a Don Dohler Appreciation Society on Facebook.
Yeah, there's a Don Dohler fan page. It's a group you can join.
I think we're going to probably wrap things up, but I was going to let Jamie have the last word because why don't you tell, you're in Nightbeast.
Yes.
And talk about being in Nightbeast and that experience and what we're going to be in for.
Getting into Nightbeast was very kind of funny, shall we say. I knew Don Leifert, who played Zachary in Alien Factor, and in Nightbeast he plays Drago, the Docker-wearing motorcyclist. And we were out at I guess it was the summer of '79, I guess, and we were at Beaver Dam up in Cockeysville, and I ran into Don up there, and I knew I had seen Alien Factor. Actually, I saw it when they screened it at the Senator Theater in Baltimore. And I was talking to him, and he said, "Yeah, we're going to do another film." I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "You need anybody to running around in the background, get chased by the monsters or anything like that? He said, I don't know. I'll talk to Don and see if there's anything for you and everything. And so, I don't know, a couple of weeks, a month later, whatever, Greg's dad called me and said, yeah, we're going to use you. Come on up to Oregon Ridge. We're going to be shooting up there. I said, oh, great, wonderful. Hey, how do I dress? He said, dress like a student, something like that and everything. So, of course, I showed up in my dingo boots with my jeans and a plaid shirt and everything. And I walk in and he hands me a script and I go, oh, I have lines? And he said, yeah, you're the star. And I went, what? Okay. Better start memorizing these and everything. So that's how I got into Nightbeast. You know, it was just swimming with a guy up at Beaver Dam, you know.
And Richard was also the cinematographer of Nightbeast.
Richard was in it. Rich and I, along with Don Lyford, we all went to Towson University together. We're in the theater courses and so forth, and that's how we all met.
Yeah, and actually, just for the record, Don Lyford and I went to the same elementary school, believe it or not, grades 1 through 4, and I hadn't seen him for a long time. I was walking down the halls at Towson University by the theater department, and I passed a guy who looks like a larger version of the guy I knew in the 4th grade. I said, are you Don Lyford? And he goes, yeah. And then so I introduced myself. Oh, yeah, I remember you and all that. But yeah, I knew him. We were, I can't remember if we were in kindergarten together or not, but we were in 1st through 4th grade together. And somehow it came full circle, and you joined the circle. That's fine.
Well, I think this is a great moment to kind of wrap this up, but we will be around afterwards. There'll be more socializing after and more stories. It's been an honor to be here and help moderate this, and I want to turn things back over to the Count. Where is he? Right here.
Let's have a round of applause for all our panelists. These folks have made a legacy and a legend that you wouldn't believe. I'm not going to say anything more, except get off the stage, come get a movie show.